How's everybody here? Yeah. So, caffeined up, if that's your, that's certainly my favorite drug. I am so excited about today's offerings because we get to dive in a little bit deeper on some of these subjects. How many of you were here last night? Oh, fantastic. Excellent. Thank you. This will be especially exciting, I think, also because we have Dr. Nina Kraus with Mickey Hart and Zakir Hussain. And they are all such brilliant experts in their fields, as we know. Please come at 2 o'clock because take note why music education matters. I'm hosting this. It's more than a panel. There are presentations. We talk about what makes great teachers, the science of teaching music in particular, and we'll have models for both in-school and out-of-school, El Sistema model, and also a fantastic public school model from the Nashville. And then learning and bonding to the beat at 4:30, optimizing your child's development. Dr. Laurel Trainer does extraordinary research with infants and toddlers and has become, and she's created materials actually that really show us exactly how and why it works. I highly recommend that. The Art of the Spark, Musical Creativity Explored, Dr. Charles Lim, and special guests. Well, these special guests are going to be very exciting. I think you're going to love this tonight. Performance and also presentation. And Charles Lim does amazing work in creativity as well. I know those of you who were there last night, I'm sure you loved it as much as I did. And then all during the day, the free events in the atrium, the drumming circle, it will be at 6 o'clock, and I definitely can't wait to be there. I'll have to do some body percussion, I think. And earlier in the day, do check out all of these various Sitar Art Center, Step Africa, the Wolf Trap for ages 2 to 6, and Arts on the Horizon. So just pass through and have a look. Please enjoy. And thank you so much for joining us for Sound Health, Music in the Mind.
Good morning. I'm Nina Kraus, and the first thing I want to say is the synchrony between Renee Fleming and Francis Collins, that rhythm that the two of them have brought together and brought to our, the world we live in is truly something to be grateful for. And there's so many thanks all around, and I'm constantly thankful for the scientists in my life who help me think, and all of you. So the first thing I get to do is introduce this guy. His name's Mickey Hart. Oh, you've heard of him? Mickey.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Kennedy Center, Renee Fleming, and Nina Kraus for inviting me here. How beautiful it is. This is such a wonderful conference. And I'd like to propose today that life works right when you are in rhythm, of course. Rhythm is anything that repeats itself in time. Heartbeat pulsing through your body, nervous system sending messages to your spinal column, your legs, your arms are blinking. Everything is about the rhythm. The rhythm is one of the ordering principles of the universe, and one of its greatest mysteries, actually. So let's go back to the beginning of time and space, the Big Bang, beat one, the downbeat, where it all started, where all rhythm came from. So 13.8 billion years ago, the blank page of the universe exploded. It created galaxies, planets, the stars, the sun, the moon, the earth, and us. Everyone has their own rhythm, beginning with your heartbeat and going out from there. My personal rhythm was a combination of nature and nurture. Both of my parents were rudimental drummers, so of course it was part of my DNA. And as a kid, my grandparents in Brooklyn, I lived in Brooklyn with my grandparents on Nostrand Avenue. As I remember it, there were trolleys, cars, taxi cabs. The whole city was filled with sound, and I was just fascinated by it. I couldn't get my ears off it, actually, and my eyes. So there was movement everywhere. And music was in the streets. Every house had a different kind of music because there was all these different ethnicities in it. There was big band, there was jazz, there was Latin music especially, and of course, the beginnings of rock and roll. And I loved it all. So please close your eyes for a moment. Please close your eyes and imagine what was your first encounter with sound when you were young? I was captivated by my soundscape. All that noise, the movement, it came together in an incredible symphony. To me, as a young boy, that was Mozart. And I love the rhythm of it all then, and I love it now. But another big part of my world, as a kid in Brooklyn, was the weather. It rained a lot. Big, warm drops of water on me, and I would stand out in the rain. It became, I just love this feeling of the rain on me, and to me, it was the rhythm of nature. But I was very young, but I didn't know what was really happening to me. But I felt these hidden rhythms defied description. It soothed me. To stand in the rain, listening, feeling the thunderstorms, rattling my teeth, rattling my bones. I became one of many kids playing on rocks, taking my sticks across fences and so forth, or beating my own rhythm, playing with the rain. Now, my mother inherited a Count Basie and Duke Ellington collection. In the middle of that collection was a recording of the Forest People. Actually, it was the rainforest, the Ituri rainforest people. And I became one with them, journeying with them, singing their songs, foraging for food. The walls of my small little brick house just disappeared as I went to another dimension. My parents had divorced and I was young. My father, he was a drummer. He left behind a practice pad. That became my object of desire. I loved it, loved the sound of it, wanted to strike it again, again, and again, and again. Drumming made me feel good. It was freedom. It kept me sane during those turbulent times. Making rhythm helped me find my own rhythm. It made me whole. So when you really feel fluid in time, when it all just clicks, that's the flow state. Now I recognize that when I was playing outside or tapping my drum pad, it was the flow state. What we know now as rhythmic entrainment, being in the moment, being in the now. Being in the now is when the will is the most powerful. And that's what you need to be able to stay in the groove. Whether it's the performance of the Warriors in the playoff finals, or Renace Fleming's amazing performance of Danny Boy at John McCain's funeral, or my driver, Phil, taking the back roads in the big bus, getting me to a show. Anyone who is in rhythm is in the flow state, which connects the mind and the body with the action. If they do it well, we can all see it and we can all feel it. Now, for all of you, you'll know when it happens because things become easy. You're not thinking, you're feeling. You've made the connection. For example, think of your average morning. You get in your car or transit. You're thinking about your problems, feeling a little off. Then you switch on your favorite music, hopefully Grateful Dead. And in a moment, your cares just float away. It's just you and the sound. Your personal rhythm, connecting to the rhythms you hear, feel, and love. This experience makes you feel great, and it gets you back in the groove. It's like a body in good health, in perfect time, in sync with itself. Music is my way of making sense of life. And one of the fundamentals of my life is vibration. Music is made of vibration, of rhythms, of sound waves that travel through the air and into our ears to entrain us and entertain us, to connect us with other people, rhythms around us. Many are not felt, sensed, or noticed directly. But nevertheless, they cause everything, everything. This is the master clock. What this says, we do. And why is this? Because music is at work instantly in the channels of the mind, brings you into the moment we hear it. If it's not your type of music, your ear might reject it as unwanted sound or noise. But if it resonates, then it connects you to your own rhythm. Sometimes we start singing along with it, or even dancing. It may cause us to think deeply, or other times we drift from one notion to another. A rhythm at work in this processing stage sets in motion other rhythmic connections until the music stops or you fall out of entrainment due to distraction, boredom, fatigue, or whatever. The value of the connections varies depending upon the uses we have of this opportunity. It helps if we become aware of these moments. They should be sought after, tended, nurtured, prolonged, and recognized for their healing potential. Then there is the amazing moment of truly being in rhythm with others. When two rhythms are in close proximity, they will eventually fall into synchrony and entrain. In nature, it's more efficient to be in time than not. So let's try something together. This is our entrainment moment. Would you please? Yes, we are in rhythm together. Feels good, right? Okay, here we go. What happened? You fell out of the groove. Well, you were doing great, and then we lost that groove. That's because a groove is a rhythmic pattern that repeats itself in time. Anyone who's ever drummed in a group or just clapped like we just did knows immediately what a groove is. It's that rush of rhythm. Swift current you enter, and you ride like a surfer riding a wave. Finding a groove enhances your sense of personal power. You feel solid. You feel whole. Now, I hope this talk has energized and emboldened you to go out and find your own personal rhythm. In your interaction with friends and family, with nature and the world at large, finding one's rhythm is everything. Next time you feel really good, take notice. Recognize what's happening and become conscious of it. Think how you can stay there and how you can return. Hold it, nurture it. I'd like to thank you very much. Take this feeling home, please. and do some good with it. Thank you very much.
So the next person who I want to introduce to you is Zakir Hussain. Truly an inspiration, and he will help us feel all of the rhythms that we need to feel as we say it with rhythm. So rhythm is everywhere. There are rhythms outside the head, rhythms in the form of sound waves, and our movements. These are all rhythms. And our brain needs to make sense of these rhythms, but not only does it need to make sense of these rhythms, it makes sense of the rhythms with rhythm. So there are rhythms that code how sounds make sense to us and our movements. So take a typical sound wave and you'll see that it has multiple rhythms in it. So it has slow rhythms and fast rhythms. If you think about speech, a sentence takes longer than a syllable or a letter sound. In music, you've got the pulse, you've got the notes, and things that happen very fast, the crash of a drum or pluck of a string. I'm walking in the woods. My footsteps take some time. The crunch of leaves, that sound happens a little faster. Then a twig snaps, faster still. Microsecond timing in sound waves and in brain activity. So the brain also encodes these sounds with rhythms of electricity, electrical rhythms, which again, we can decompose into rhythms of various speeds. There's slow and fast rhythms. As a biologist, I ask, what is going on in the brain? So we have an internal sense of the beat. And then it can be unrelated to the beat. Okay, now the sound of the kunga is identical, whether it was on or unrelated to the beat, but the brain knows the difference. So the brain responded to that same kunga sound differently when it was on the beat, and importantly, so every time the kunga hit, you see that this thing here, this big pulse here, that's one of the rhythms that the brain produces in response to the sound at that rhythm. And it occurs whether the sound is on the beat or unrelated to the beat. But look at what happens over here. Only when it's on the beat, the brain manufactures additional helping rhythms. So here's the strong beat that the brain codes irrespectively. Now, when it's on the beat, the brain will manufacture this additional rhythm. So that snare, that's not part of what the brain is hearing out in the world. It's not part of the sound stimulus, but the brain is manufacturing that because it works on rhythms. So the auditory system, when we entrain to sounds, we are really, really good at doing that when we have to entrain to an auditory stimulus. If it's a visual stimulus, it's not as accurate. So I really need you to know that the auditory system is the temporal expert of the brain. Rhythm involves not just sound, but movement, auditory motor integration. Now I want you to, there's motion capture on the end of this violin bow that can show you how the movement has to happen in a string player. And clearly, this requires auditory motor integration. So what's happening in the brain? Well, in some experiments that were done in Robert Satoria's lab, he taught some of his lab subjects to play some pieces on the piano. And after he had taught them how to play the piece, he had them listen to just the pieces. And what he found is that the areas of the motor cortex were active. So he's just listening. The people are just listening. They are not playing, but their brain, we learn, and the motor cortex is engaged as if they were playing. This even happened when they imagined playing the piece. So now they weren't even listening to the sound. They were just imagining the sound, and the motor area was active. There is a tremendously tight connection between our auditory system and how we move in the world. And importantly, the people who were not trained to do these, to play the pieces, there was no motor system engagement. So language and rhythm coincide. And when I'm talking about language, I'm talking about speaking and language development. And we have learned over the years, there's converging evidence from many scientific camps, that the ability to perform rhythmic tasks, and especially to be entrained to a beat, tracks with language skills and especially reading. What is going on in the brain? Well, we can measure the brain's response to sound. So each one of those waves is the brain's response to a sound, and this is a sound response that shows tremendous stability in the neural response to sound. So the sound happens, the brain responds. If there's very little jitter, and it turns out that people who are good at rhythmic tasks, when you measure their brain's response to sound, there's very little jitter in that activity. Moreover, that jitter in brain activity is present and underlies language ability. And we know that kids who have unstable responses to sound, so play a sound and the brain responds, play a sound, the brain responds, but there's a jitter in that response. If the brain is hearing the same sound differently each time, it is difficult for a child to make sound-to-meaning connections and learn language. So it is obvious that there is rhythm in music, in every kind of music, but there is also rhythm in speech.
You're a cheat and a swindler. That's what you are. How can you do a thing like this? Build up a little boy's hopes and then smash all his dreams to pieces. You're an inhuman monster.
I said good day!
Zakir, as I'm talking to you now, there is rhythm in my voice. The drums are playing it too. We are here to celebrate the power of rhythm. So now the master will tell us about rhythm and language, rhythm as a language, Zakir Hussain.
Dagena dagate nagena, tekte dagena den. Mickey triggertigata, gegena gadinna. You dagena tin, triggertigatan katan, giran gedin natan gedin tetekata gadigena na 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 na. Me dha tetekat, gena dagetin. Where were you? Just down the road with friends. What did you do there? Not much. Just I met So dhagena dhagate nagena tete dhagena te nagena dhati dhagate nagena dhatete dhatete dhagate nagena tete tete dhagena te nagena tete tete dhagena dhagate nagena gena tin dhagena tete tete dhagena dhagate nagena tete kat dha dhagena tin nagena tete kat. Sounds which for normal ears are just these rhythmic patterns, but when those sounds are being piped into your ears since you're 2 days old, they become expressive elements with grammar, with refined sentences, paragraphs, and they become a language. And what it does to us is it allows us to be able to utilize the information that's arriving into our brain in a way where it arranges the rhythm of the speech in a very clear and pristine manner, and therefore gives us the ability to be able to converse in different languages. Because every language has rhythm. Every language has an improvisational ability. When I'm speaking with you, I'm not looking at any paper or a teleprompter or anything. I'm just speaking straight from the heart, what's coming into my mind, organizing it in a way that makes sense to me and hopefully is clear to you what the purpose of my delivering of these words are to you. So I'm improvising in English at this point. I grew up learning Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi, Gujarati, those languages in India, and a language called tabla, the instrument. And that's what music is all about. The music allows you to be able to express yourself in a way where it universalizes your thought processes and makes sense to people sitting in a concert hall of different ways of life, different languages they speak, different books they read, different kind of traditions they come from, but yet they all groove at the same time to a tempo. They all understand a beautiful melodic line played either on a violin or a voice, and they all ooh and ah at the same time. So the music has that ability. When I was 2 days old, brought home, and my mother handed me to my father, the tradition was that the father would take the baby in the arm and recite a prayer in the baby's ear. My father took me in his arm and recited rhythms. My mother was very upset, saying, "What are you doing? You're supposed to say prayers." I mean, the boy's got to be started right in his life. He's got to take the right steps, and so, pointed in the right direction. And he said, "This is my prayer. This is what makes me whole. This is what makes me healthy. This is what makes me a human being of consequence." And so I'm going to pass to him the words that I pray through. For me, this is my mode of worship. And that connection was very interesting for me and very interesting for people around us, because when I was born, my father was very sick. He was almost dying. People were coming to see him for the last time and so on. And then a holy man came to our house, a saintly character, and he called my mother out and said to her, "Give this name to your son, the newborn. Call him Zakir." They hadn't planned, she wasn't sure. There was hesitancy in the house, confusion, husband dying, child born, what to do about it. He said, "Give him this name and care for him. Make sure that he is looked after, because for the next 4 years, he's going to get sick. And he's going to absorb all the sickness of your husband. So he said. And maybe this whole process of reciting rhythms into my ears was something that was ordained, that passed on whatever was inside of my father and bothered him or kept him sick through me, and I was the mode to get it out. So yes, for the next 4 years, I would get sick, I would get burns, I would get boils, I would get typhoid, all sorts of stuff happened to me. But the strange thing was, as I got sick, he got healthier. And the language of rhythm that stayed within us somehow helped him to recuperate, and through me, it channeled out and threw all the negative elements out of him. So rhythm has that power. Music has that power. When you chant in a rhythmic way, you're speaking to God. There's a certain rhythm to it. When we are in India, there are Bhagavad Gita's, Ramayana, Mahabharata, great historic accounts written. They are all couplets. And those couplets are in different meters. There's thousands of them. And those couplets are the one that in the temples designed for us what our rhythm cycles would be like. So when there is a prayer in the temple and you recite these chants, there's a certain energy that comes into play. And similarly, when you come to the concert, you listen to music, the cares fall off. And especially when your cell phone is off. The cares of the world go away, you don't know what's happening outside, and for those fleeting moments, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, you suddenly rejuvenate. You become healthy, there's freshness inside of you, and you go out to face the world all recouped and ready to handle all those little problems that you left behind for those moments. Music has that ability, music has that energy, music has that power, music has that blessing. And we were born with it, we lived in it. It's interesting that when a child is put to bed, a white noise tape is played. And somehow the child gets caught up in this white noise with nothing there to be able to dissect, analyze, absorb. But when a child like me hears those rhythms in my ears, constantly being piped in, or at the age of 6 or 7, when my father took me aside at 3 o'clock in the morning and to tell me about rhythms and to tell me about the stories and the great masters that went back before us and what they taught us and what the compositions mean, where they come from, the significance of it, and all that. When you grow up in that, the brain is stimulated. You start to feel there's a certain kind of energy inside of you that is not just you, but a collective strength of many generations of spirits that have gone before. And somehow that vibration, that sound therapy, if for a lack of a better word, helps you to be able to stay healthy, focused, centered. And that's what I have to say. The language speaks for itself. When I see a deer going, a deer in the forest looking for food finds a McDonald's, a Pizza Hut, maybe. You never know. But then there's a hunter out there, and the deer looks at the hunter and gets startled and runs away. Now, there's a certain way the deers run. It's a beautiful gait. It's half running, half flying. How do you express that in rhythms? McDonald's, Pizza Hut, a nice Dwayne and Reed to get some 7-Up. Hunter. Startled, runs away. And you can play that. you can express it as a story. Hunter, and then the running, and runs away. So these are things that live in us. The nature is always there, and it inspires us. It tells us what we are all about. We are part of a bigger scheme, and at the same time, it's the rhythm. And my father's words for me, which were very important in my head, was always look for the downbeat, which means a lot of things. I mean, I never understood it when I was 7, but the reality is that we must know where we are going. And then we will get there eventually, maybe, maybe not, but we must know where we are going. It's never the idea to be perfect. The idea is to just be a student, learning all the way through. And in that process, you just make yourself unique, and you make yourself very clean, healthy, and part of something that is so special. The only positive energy that lives on this planet is art, creativity. And just being a part of it is something that makes us a unique species on this planet. Thank you.
Oh, that was beautiful. Yeah. How did you know? That's coming right up. There are many rhythms, many, many rhythms. And so are there rhythm intelligences? So a form of rhythm is following the pulse, the beat. So that's typically what you snap your finger to or tap your foot to. In music, it's notated by the meter, and you have to know where the 1 is. With rhythm patterns, it's the duration of notes. And again, it's notated like this in music. So have shave and a haircut, 2 bits, and that was the rhythm pattern. And the rhythm pulse, shave and a haircut, 2 bits, right? Okay. So what is interesting about this is that in the lab, we give people all kinds of rhythmic tests, and there are various ones that are pulse-based and other ones that are pattern-based. And it turns out that you cannot predict how well a person's going to do on the pattern tests based on how they do on the pulse test. And this very much surprised me, one of the many, many times I've been wrong as a scientist, to learn that these are dissociable skills. You can't predict pulse and pattern processing. So I would like Mickey and Zakir to illustrate some pulse and pattern for you and get you involved.
Let's involve them. Okay, let's divide you up. You're too many of you, so you take that side. I'll take this side, the better side.
Yes, the better side. The sunny side of the street.
The sunny side of the street. What do you want to tell them to do? Keep it soft. I want you to feel the downbeat. Don't clap. Let them do that. Hard work. And on the downbeat, I just want you to go, hmm. lengthen your hum. And you guys in the middle, got to do something. What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? There you go. You got it. And I'll say, it's the rhythm. It's the rhythm. It's the rhythm. What's that?
Thank you. So there are these different rhythm intelligences, and of course, what is going on in the brain? It turns out this is a very interesting story for a biologist, because remember at the beginning I said that there were fast responses to sound and very slow responses to sound, and it turns out that the pulse-based tasks really align themselves with the fast neurosynchrony that is important in processing sound waves, and the rhythm pattern engages some of the slower brain waves, which makes a lot of sense because you can think, it takes longer for a pattern to evolve. We need both the pulse and the pattern rhythms in the brain in terms of sound processing for language skills. We especially need the slow synchrony over time for hearing in noise. So for hearing in complex soundscapes, musicians are very good at hearing in complex soundscapes and pulling out signals from unwanted signals. We need to be able to pull out speech in noisy environments, and it is the rhythm of speech that fills in the gaps in noise. So it is the rhythm of speech that helps you fill in the gaps in noise.
The rhythm of speech helps you fill in the gaps in noise.
You heard that, right? So now it's going to get noisier, and just keep following that rhythm.
The rhythm of speech helps you fill in the gaps in noise.
So that rhythm is very important. And what is fascinating is if you have people in a lab do the kinds of tests of saying, okay, so what do the guys say? Oh, the rhythm of speech helps you fill in the gaps in noise. Your ability to perform that kind of a test tracks with how good you are at discriminating rhythms. So I can give you different rhythms, and how good are you at discriminating them will also predict how good you are at being able to hear speech and noise. So hearing speech and noise, you need to be able to pick up on rhythms and patterns over time. Turns out drummers are especially good at this. But across the lifespan and in many different kinds of musicians are simply better at hearing speech and noise, so that this rhythm ability that was developed through listening to complex soundscapes in music transfers to speech, and because there are connections. What is going on in the brain? Beautifully, you can see it in the brain waves. So the red waves are the musician's response in quiet and in noise. The musician's response to speech, you can see it's equally strong in noise as in quiet, but the non-musician really takes a hit over here in noise. Pretty good in quiet, not so good in noise. And we talked about auditory motor integration. It turns out that when it is noisy, this is when we engage what we have learned before, these auditory motor connections. So when it is noisy, musicians will engage their motor cortex. When it's very noisy, they will continue to engage their motor cortex as they're just trying to listen. They're just trying to make sense of sound. And again, the non-musicians are doing okay when it's just sort of noisy, but this motor connection fades out when the listening gets tough in the non-musicians. So how can we improve our rhythm? We can improve our rhythm in a number of ways. One, really the best way, is to make music. And the other is to play rhythm games. So we know that making music will enhance language skills. So much converging evidence saying this now. And now, why is this? It's because rhythm occurs in music, no matter how simple or how complicated the music is, rhythm is there. And music, of course, has all of these rhythmic dimensions, the pulse and the pattern. We wanted to make sure that the kids who got music education actually got better at rhythm, so we matched groups based on age and sex and various other abilities. One group got a form of enrichment, another group got music, and you can see that it's really just the kids who made music over the course of the year, whose rhythm skills then, when they were measured in a lab, really music, not so surprisingly, improves your rhythm skills. And this work is supported by John Everson's study, where you can see rhythm skills get better as you get older. There's a lot of variability. The kids who play music are the best at rhythm, and there's the least variability in their data. So making music strengthens language, and I want to point out the fact that especially in low-income areas, there is an achievement gap in language and reading skills. And so typically what happens in these areas is that the kids might start out maybe in first grade at age norm levels, but then as the years go on, this gap widens. And what we found in these groups, in these low-income areas, we found that the kids who were engaged in steady, continuous music making, these are the kids who maintained their age-normed reading scores. So there's an important connection here. Music therapy is another way of supporting language development, and music therapists all over the world know this. And why is it? It is because it is important to be using rhythm skills to anticipate where the important signals happen. Watch this.
I see a dog. I see a dog. Nice job. I see a dog.
So you can see how this directed work can help improve rhythm skills. So music through rhythm stimulates brain networks for language. I want to invite you to download from our website, we're called Brain Volts, our neuroeducation or advocacy trifold flyer, which has all in one place information that might be useful to you as you advocate for music. Let's move on to digital music medicine. So there are a number of computer games that can be used to strengthen music skills. Not many of them are especially precise or researched, but we are making progress. So what I get to do next is to introduce to you really the world's expert on computer games for health, Adam Gazzaley.
Thank you. Thanks, Nina. Hello, everyone. Thank you. I'd like to thank Renee for the warm invitation to be here as part of this event. It's really exciting couple days, and I want to take this opportunity to broaden the conversation just a little bit with you. I would propose that one of the main challenges our species faces is to enhance our cognition. And I put this right up there with other pressing global priorities. If we humans can't manage to focus our attention in a sustained way and make decisions that are creative, wiser, more future-oriented, that prioritize others rather than ourselves, we'll never deal with the other complex crises like those affecting our climate. And so I want to be clear that I am referring to cognition, the function of our mind and brain, in a very broad way here. Our attention, our memory, our perception, decision-making and reasoning, our imagination and creativity, our emotional regulation. And right up there, and the most important, is our empathy, our compassion, and our wisdom. And I'd say when it comes to assessing these, nurturing them, and developing them, we're really tragically lacking. We know that around the world, over 500 million people suffer debilitating effects of anxiety, depression, coupled with suicide, and deficits in attention and memory. Now, these problems really are not being addressed by our current medical system right now. And I'm just going to go through this very quickly to tell you some of the challenges we face. 5 challenges in our current system. First is that we don't have really fine assessments of cognition. When you show up at a doctor's office because you're depressed or you have anxiety or an attention problem, we don't really bring all the tools of cognitive neuroscience and functional brain imaging to bear. So we don't really know what's going on inside your brain when you're there seeking help. The other problem is that our treatments that we've relied on for 60 years are poorly targeted to the brain's neural networks. And therefore, we have to increase the doses of these pharmaceuticals, these molecules, to very high levels to get the effects we're looking for. And then we get pretty much just as many side effects as we do effects. The other problem is that it is a very non-personalized system. We make our decisions as physicians about the doses that you take and the paradigm that you work through on how you treat yourself based on large population studies that ignore all the individual differences of the brains in those studies. Some physicians still have this siloed unimodal view where they think of the pill as a holy grail, that it could correct all these complex challenges of the brain. And then one of the biggest problems is that it's an open loop system. That means that there's this very long, sloppy, non-quantitative cycle between how we treat someone and then how we update that treatment depending on how it works. And so we need a new approach. This is really just not good enough. These are fundamental hurdles in our entire global system that we use to support cognition when we have deficits. And so the approach we're looking for is something that's targeted, personalized, multimodal, and closed loop, correcting all of those deficits. And it raises the question, can we use technology, which has had such a big impression on the world and in our lives? Can we use it for impact to create these type of solutions? Maybe not to replace the current medicines we have, but to support them in a way that makes up for all those deficits that we haven't been able to correct. And we're at a very exciting time in technology, right? We now have the consumerization of virtual reality, augmented reality, motion capture devices, wearable, smart physiological recordings, and then there's machine learning and other artificial intelligence algorithms. So how can we think about technology like these, as well as the ones you have in your pockets right now, as tools to help us enhance cognition? Well, on the surface, it's not really that complicated. It's because technologies can be used to create experiences. And experiences are the gateway to our brain's plasticity, that wondrously complex dance of change that occurs in all of your brains all the time. The brain modifies itself at every level, its structure, its chemistry, and its function, all in response to experiences. And we know how strong this relationship is, right? Someone can witness a single tragic event that dramatically and detrimentally affects the function of their brain for the rest of their life. We call that post-traumatic stress disorder. So the challenge before us is, how do we leverage existing technologies or create new technologies to build experiences that maximally harness the brain's plasticity to enhance our cognition, refine our behavior, and ultimately to elevate our minds? Now, not all experiences are created equal, but one particular experience that I'm interested in is the closed loop system, closed loop experience. Now, I already told you what the open loop is, right? You take a drug, you go home, you subjectively monitor your effects, months may pass, you go back to your doctor, and then we go up 5 or 10 milligrams, right? This is the art of medicine. But it's an imprecise way. Every engineer knows that the closed loop is the most effective way to change anything. A closed loop is where you intervene in some way, you record the impact, ideally in real time, and then you use that data immediately to update your intervention. You record, you refine, you reapply over and over again, cycling through the closed loop. At each pass, you're becoming more personalized and more focused at yielding the outcome that you're looking for. Now, there are many closed loops that exist. As a matter of fact, the thermostats in your home work on a closed loop, sensing the temperature and then regulating the cool or the heat to maintain equilibrium. But we really have no closed loop systems in our biological toolkit yet. But I think there is an incredible opportunity. And for the last 10 years, I've exploring the use of creating video games as a tool to build closed-loop experiences to change the brain. So let me show you how this works. Here's your brain. And as you know, it's your brain that's playing the computer game, moving your body. And while that's occurring, your behavior is generating performance metrics. How fast you are, how accurate you are. The game can record all this through its sensors, like the accelerometer or the tap screen, and then can feed back to you in real time an environment that's based upon your gameplay. The first thing it could adjust is the challenge, so that you're right in that sweet spot where it's not so hard that you're frustrated and you want to put it down, not so easy that you're completely bored. The other thing we could do in real time with the environment is to give you feedback and rewards. And every game developer in the world knows that the way you maintain that deep immersion in gameplay is through that real-time reward system. So this is the basic model that we're looking at to create a new pathway into changing the brain. The other thing we could do is use these new technologies like motion capture, physiological recordings. You could buy these both on Amazon right now. They're already in the consumer place to record more detailed information about how you are performing physiologically during gameplay in the moment. And then, of course, we can output the environment that you're experiencing in a much richer real-world manner through virtual reality and augmented reality. We can wrap all of this together with advances in artificial intelligence. And then what we wind up with here is a truly multimodal, closed-loop integrated system. I would say that the future of AI is really to promote HI, human intelligence. Now, this doesn't exist right now, but this is what we're working to develop. And I just want to take a quick step back and tell you about my first foray into this. 10 years ago, I challenged my lab at University of California in San Francisco. Could we build a closed-loop video game to improve attention in older adults? And we've been studying for many years distraction associated with aging. And so we built this game here. It's a car racing game called NeuroRacer. And we did a study that took 3 years. And what we did is look at multitasking performance on this game across the lifespan. The first thing we found is that despite the fact that at least 20-year-olds in San Francisco believe firmly that they are multitasking masters, that they suffer a 33% decrement in their ability to multitask on the game. Now, we already knew from many years of research that 80-year-olds are not great at multitasking. Lots of data for this. And that's even if you equate the two single tasks to their ability. It's when the tasks come together that there's lots of problems. But we asked the question, what happens? Do you maintain this ability at this level through your entire life and then just plummet when you're 79 years old? Or, as we found out, do you plummet every tragic year of your life? So this is the sad news. This is what it looks like. So if there's anyone here that's around 23 years old, anyone? If you're out there, this is, you should be enjoying it. This is the peak of that pyramid right there. This is as good as it is going to get. So what we wanted to do then is to use the game not just as a diagnostic, but as a therapeutic to see if we can improve this ability. And we found after 12 hours of gameplay over the course of a month, 1 hour a day, 3 days a week for 4 weeks, we were able to bring our older participants back and find that this occurred. We were able to improve their ability to multitask on the game dramatically, many even exceeding the level of 20-year-olds. But most importantly, and we published this in the end of 2013 in this journal, Nature, was that we were able to show that we also improved untrained abilities on the game, their sustained attention and their memory for faces. And that's what we're looking for, that transfer of benefit from the closed-loop environment of the game to other abilities. This led to us now trying to move the game out into the real world, which involved not just academics, but industry, and this fine, sort of delicate relationship between them. So I co-founded a company called Achille that is designing way better games on that same game engine. Now, what's interesting about Achille is that you can't buy these games right now. We've made a sort of unique decision to not just put it out in the consumer space, but to go through the careful, long research that we need to validate these as new diagnostic and therapeutic tools. And so if you take a look at all of these different populations, these studies are all being performed around the US right now to reach that highest level of approval of what we consider a digital medicine. So right now we have pharmaceutical medicines that deliver molecular treatments. We're talking about digital medicines that deliver experiential treatments. The video game is not really the treatment, it is our pill. It's how we deliver the experience to you in an engaging, enjoyable way. And so these trials are all going on, and the one that's most exciting that I want to tell you about is we completed what's known as a phase 3 FDA trial for ADHD. That trial was positive. We announced that at the end of 2017. And what we're looking at now is going through the FDA process to have this approved as the first ever FDA-cleared non-drug treatment for ADHD. Thank you. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be looking at the first ever FDA-approved video game and digital medicine. So where do we go from here? So my laboratory at UCSF was transformed by this study, and now we became a research center called Neuroscape, where we want to take these lessons that I shared with you about the closed-loop system to bridge technology and neuroscience. I don't have time to share with you today, but if you go to Neuroscape, our website, you'll see about all of the games and research that we're doing. We now have 6 other games that we've created to target different aspects of cognition using this closed-loop principles that I described. All of them bring on a higher level of art, music, story, and reward, all of which we think are critical ingredients in this new form of medicine. In the meanwhile, I guess several years ago, we decided to move outside of some of the classic approaches to cognitive improvement that we're looking, and to look at the benefits of rhythm. Now, you already heard a lot about rhythm and the brain, but one of the things that we're interested in is, can we take this closed-loop principle to the use of rhythm to improve performance? So with support from Mickey, and Carol Hart is here as well, we've been able to launch this rhythmicity program. The idea is because rhythm involves anticipation and timing, and all brain functions, attention and memory, all work on rhythmic abilities of the brain. So if we could have you synchronize, there you go, with different rhythms, and it starts easy. I can promise you it gets a lot harder. Here it goes. Excellent. That's the first time I ever did that. That worked great. So the idea is that as you get better, and we look at your accuracy and your consistency, keep on going, you're doing great. What we can do is keep pushing you to more and more complicated rudiments. We can get faster tempos. We can pull away the auditory information, making you do it visually alone. We can make you reproduce rhythms. And so, thank you. Give yourself all a big round of applause. Excellent. And so what I want to do with you now is something that we have never done before. What we want to share with you is our latest foray into that. So right now, we have randomized controlled trial going on with that game Rhythmicity on older adults to improve their rhythm. The first question is, can we make people more rhythmic? Even that is still an open-ended question. We believe we can, and we believe the benefits of being more rhythmic will be across all aspects of cognition, and that's what we're testing. But we also realized that there was an incredible opportunity here to use the latest cutting-edge technology that's coming out to bring the rhythm game to its next level. So this is just in development. What we're building is a virtual reality rhythm game. So you can see Mickey over there, who's been part of our development team for many years now. And the idea is to create, who's done like virtual reality with the big head-mounted displays yet? Also, a good number of people. So it is really jaw-dropping. For those of you who have not done it, I encourage you to try to do it. It's amazing to see how rich the visual and auditory landscape is. And then, of course, this motion capture. Rhythm is more than tapping, right? It's moving your entire body. And so the idea that we can immerse you in this beautiful visual world where you can see and hear and even feel rhythms, and then move your entire body, we thought that this will have even a bigger benefit than our tapping tablet game. Now, of course, we don't know that yet. We're building it, and then we have years in front of us of research. But what we're going to do today is show you Mickey playing the very early demo build of our game Rhythmicity VR, which we're now calling Coherence. So Mickey, come on up here. So remember now, Mickey will not be able to see you. He's going to be in a virtual world, but you're going to see what's going on here. And my amazing wife, Jo, who's also my colleague, part of our tech team, is going to help get Mickey into his gear here. Okay, we're going to bring over the sticks. They're coming for you, Mickey. So as anyone that's ever done demos on stage, including VR knows, this is always a delicate moment. Okay, so first, before we begin, Mickey, raise one of your hands. Put one really high above your head. There you go. So you could see his hands up there. I just want you to understand that you can't see all of Mickey, but Mickey's world is this beautiful world with this tree, and it goes all around him. Here, let me make sure it's on you nice and tight. How's that?
That's great, thank you.
Okay, so, but you could see, so you're not seeing his whole body, but he's looking out at that tree, and you see his hands over there. You see he's holding those wands. And those 4 circles are where his cues are going to be coming. So a music set's going to be playing, and he's going to be playing along with it in virtual reality using his full body movements. And we're just going to do a couple minutes of showing you this game. Now, it's going to be adapting naturally just to show you some of the complexity. But the real game will adapt in a closed loop as you get better. All right, let's do it. Maybe step forward, Mick. There you go. Mickey's an artist, so lots of extra flourishes. So each of those thunderclouds indicate a change of challenge, more rhythms. Now you can see right now it's coming left, right. It could come in every direction, left, left, the whole body. Even we're going to put foot movements into this as well.
I got you.
All right. We might have been able to put a harder challenge on for Mickey. So you can see up on the top we have a score that accumulates. We have a way of giving rewards for consistency. So as you do better, not just accurate, but maintain that high level, you can get extra rewards that give you higher points. And this is our highest level that we have here. So as you can hear, the snapping is Mickey's responses. All right, bring us home, Mickey. Last several. All right, we'll pull you out into the world so you can see all your fans, Mickey.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
All right, so my dears, there is another computer rhythm game that is called Interactive Metronome. And Mickey and Zakir will be competing on this game. But what is very important about Interactive Metronome is the word interactive, because rhythm is an interaction. And so, just as we dance with someone, they move, you move, and you adjust. And this is how you find your rhythm. Mickey and Zakir will be getting cues. They will be trying to synchronize with a cowbell sound, and at the same time, they will be seeing cues, visual cues that will tell them how close or far they're getting. But before they play, I just want to tell you one thing, because you got to remember this is science and the brain. We know that interactive metronome, one of the things that we know is that one's ability to perform this game is tied with their language skills, their phonologic awareness, memory, reading, and syntax, and processing speed. What is going on in the brain? This is important, and this is a discovery. What we have discovered is, remember, we talked about these fast neural synchronies that are important for processing sound in the brain. And then there are electrical activities that are happening over longer time scales. It turns out that interactive metronome engages both of these systems simultaneously. Important, of course, that there is a relationship between these fast and slow brain rhythms and their actual language ability. So here we go. So Mickey has a hand trigger, and he's moving his whole body, not just that economy of motion that a drummer has. Yeah. And you can see how well he's doing. So, I mean, here's a professional drummer, and, I mean, you know, imagine, so if he was like getting 100%, it would be there on the green. So you have 15 milliseconds in that green space. So here he was 3 milliseconds off, and whoa. But imagine, you know, imagine a child with an attention deficit disorder or a language disorder, you know, trying to learn to play this game. This is very, very challenging. So now you're going to actually, you're playing for points. Okay, ready? Whenever he gets it right on, he makes those frowny faces go away, and we get happy faces that turn green. So there's a reward in here. See, all happy green guys. All right, so now we have your score. We won't tell you what it is yet. And Zakir is next.
Tick-tock.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
I know who's going to win this game.
So Zakir's job, you know, it's getting to be close. It's the end of the summer. He's going to bring summer back. He's going to be putting leaves back on the trees based on his performance. We're counting on you. 1, 2, 3, go. Summer's coming back. Awesome. And he's getting guide tones. Not only this visual stimulation, but guide tones that are telling him how he's doing. All right. Yay. Okay. So, runner-up with a score of 35 milliseconds is Mickey Hart.
35 milliseconds. I like that.
And the winner is Zakir Hussain. Good job. Yay. So, who's a candidate for rhythm training? The brain can tell us. So, we are so interested in measuring how the brain processes sound. And by measuring the brain's response to sound, we can tell, we can do some fortune telling, looking at those rhythms, those synchronous rhythms, those fast rhythms, those slower rhythms. We can predict what child is going to have difficulty reading, what child is going to have difficulty developing language. And of course, these are the kids for whom we want to reinforce and have rhythm therapy of one kind or another. So we have been focusing on rhythm for language, speaking, reading, ADHD, autism. But I do want to bring out, you know, because the link between the auditory and the motor system is so powerful, I want to just pause for a minute and consider movement disorders and also concussion. This is an area that is very of great interest to our lab these days as we're looking at sound processing in athletes who have sustained concussions. But have a look at this gentleman who has Parkinson's disease. So he's having quite a difficult time getting across the threshold. His movements are very labored. Now he's listening to music, kind of getting into the groove. So that is auditory motor integration at its finest. So the idea of rhythm for health is one that is becoming increasingly recognized, and one that, as I'm trying to learn about, well, how are rhythms utilized in health, I remember my son Mikey, who's here, at one point had a foot that he'd broken his foot and it wasn't healing for a while. And they gave him a bone vibrator that is supposed to promote bone density and healing. And this is vibrations at roughly about 100 hertz. Turns out this is the same frequency of a cat's purr. And it gets you wondering when the cat isn't leaping, it's hanging out, getting its bones really strong. And maybe this is why cats have 9 lives. So a few summary points. Rhythms are everywhere. They're in sound, in beautiful, invisible, powerful sound, and in our brains, the rhythms of our brain, the rhythms of the electricity. Auditory motor integration, the way we as human beings intersect with the world and communicate with it in rhythm and in integration, it's rooted. Auditory motor integration, our movements in the world are rooted in rhythm. Auditory and motor synchrony are key for language. Deficits in rhythm and brain timing, these really underlie developmental language disorders. And we can see it in the brain. Neurosynchrony exists for rhythm and for language skills. There is an orderly and systematic relationship which we are learning more about all the time. We can strengthen rhythm through music therapy, through making music, through digital music medicine. And importantly, for all that we're talking here, we, as scientists and biologists, we know so little. I like to say we don't know anything, but we are striving to learn, and there is power in that knowledge and the science to inform the brain mechanisms that underlie how we move through the world with our rhythms, I think is fundamental to improving health and education globally. So I think if I can have, why don't you just stay where you are, because I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for your Rythm Finale. But I just want to hear a few words. So Zakir.
Yes.
What is in your rhythmic heart? What is in your rhythmic heart in terms of, if you had a magic wand and you had an answer scientifically that would inform what you do, what would you want to know?
I want to know where the downbeat is.
Yeah.
It's important. I mean, to center on, you have fairy tales and stuff, and in those they mention North Star. You want to go there, you want to go that way. So there's always some place that you need to get to. And the idea is not to be stuck in one thought process so that you start to become stale, monotonous. You must always be able to learn more, reinvent yourself more, be creative, and find new ways to be able to tell the same old story. Nobody has said anything new over the past thousands of years.
Yeah.
And so all we are trying to do is tell the same old story, but in a way where it resonates in today. And so to do that, you need to know where you're going and where the downbeat is. So that's what I look for.
So I can really imagine entire paths of research that are centered on this question.
Yeah.
What is happening in the brain? What is this downbeat?
Yes.
I think I see that time is what it is.
It is a plot to keep everything from happening at once.
Beautiful. So I think what you all really want to hear, and what I would like to leave you with, is a rhythm finale that can only be performed by these two wonderful people. We're so lucky. So take it away.
I might add one thing, Nina.
Yes.
The downbeat sometimes is where you find it. Sometimes it is not always in the place where you think it is.
You mean to say one is where you put it?
One is where you put it, right. Sometimes you can let the downbeat go. You can let one go. One is home. That's, you have to know where home is. And so the downbeat is home. But as his father, Abaji, taught me, and taught Zakir, is that you can move these downbeats as long as there's agreement on this. So, in jazz, like the brain is jazz. It makes up its mind very quickly, goes from one thing, goes to the other thing, but it knows where home's at right here. It's in your heartbeat, it's in your breath, it's in your life-giving force. And that's what rhythm really does. It kind of is a sound symbol of your own personal rhythm. We've played together for many years, and we kind of know each other's rhythms a little bit better than just people meeting on the street. But yet, that can happen instantly. Two people can meet, they can play together, very, very easily, because life is all about rhythm. We're just makers of rhythm. Rhythm is all around us. And yes, there has to be a one. We have to know where it is. But you could float. You can go off the one, but you have to find the one again. Because if you don't find the one, you have chaos. Now, nothing wrong with chaos, I might add.
Make us some rhythms.
I get paid for chaos.
Chaos.
Thank you.